It was the bloodiest war in American history. A war where brothers fought brothers, where the future of millions and the very idea of freedom hung in the balance. This is the story of the American Civil War, and nothing about it was simple. In the 19th century, the United States was growing, but internally drifting apart. In the North, free labor and industry. In the South, plantations built on slavery. Two ways of life, two worldviews, inside the same country. Tensions rose as the nation expanded westward. The South wanted slavery in the new territories. The North opposed it. Each new law, like the Kansas-Nebraska Act, only fueled the fire. Instead of union, came confrontation. Words were no longer enough. Armed clashes like those in Kansas showed that war wasn't a distant possibility. It was already taking shape. America was cracking, and the sound of that break was growing louder. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected President of the United States, without the support of a single Southern state. For Southerners, this was a clear sign that their way of life was under threat. The spark had been lit. Shortly after the election, South Carolina declared its secession from the Union. In the following months, other states followed. By February 1861, the Confederate States of America was born, with its own constitution and president. As Lincoln prepared to take office, the nation was already divided. On one side, the Union, on the other, the Confederacy. Politics could no longer hold back the rupture. Conflict was now inevitable. In April 1861, Confederate forces surrounded Fort Sumter, a federal base in South Carolina. The U.S. government refused to abandon it. Then, at dawn on April 12th, Confederate cannons opened fire. The Civil War had begun. The bombardment lasted 34 hours. With no reinforcements, the Union garrison surrendered. No combat deaths, but the impact was massive. The entire country understood. There was no turning back. After Fort Sumter, Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteers. The South responded with more secessions. Suddenly, brothers were on opposite sides, and a war between Americans was officially underway. The early battles showed this wouldn't be a quick war. In July 1861, at Bull Run, Northern spectators watched with confidence until the Union Army fled in panic. This war would be long and bloody. As the war continued, families were torn apart. Brothers fought on opposite sides. Neighbors became enemies. It wasn't just North versus South. It was American versus American, and the pain reached every home. Each battle brought thousands of deaths, and with them, the illusion of a glorious war faded. All that remained was mud, blood, and the growing certainty that the price of division would be far too high. On September 17, 1862, the fields of Antietam, Maryland, became the site of the bloodiest day in U.S. history. In just 12 hours, over 22,000 men were killed, wounded, or missing. No other single day on American soil cost so much blood. Despite the carnage, the battle was tactically inconclusive. But strategically, it was a Union victory. The Confederacy was forced to retreat, and Lincoln seized the moment to give the war a new purpose: freedom. Antietam wasn't just a battle, it was a turning point. There, among the blood and the mud, a new America began to emerge, one where slavery would be challenged and freedom finally proclaimed. After the Battle of Antietam, Lincoln saw the opportunity to reshape the war. On January 1st, 1863, he signed the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring all enslaved people in rebel states to be free. The war now had a new purpose: freedom. The proclamation didn't free everyone instantly, but its impact was profound. It turned the war into a moral crusade, isolated the Confederacy internationally, and paved the way for black soldiers to join the Union Army. With Lincoln's pen, the war was no longer just about Union. It became a fight for the soul of America. From that moment on, every battle carried a new meaning: the promise of a truly free nation. In July 1863, Union and Confederate forces clashed in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. For 3 days, over 150,000 soldiers fought across open fields, hills, and stone walls. The sound of cannon fire echoed like the very fate of America. On the third day, Confederate General Robert E. Lee ordered the infamous Pickett's Charge, a direct assault on the Union center. It was a massacre. The charge failed, and the Confederacy would never regain its offensive momentum. Gettysburg was the turning point. The Confederacy began to retreat, and months later, Lincoln returned to the battlefield to honor the fallen with a speech that would echo through history: the Gettysburg Address. The war was far from over, but victory was now in sight. In 1864, Union General William Tecumseh Sherman launched a campaign that would change the course of the war. Marching from Georgia to the Atlantic Ocean, his troops destroyed railroads, burned plantations, and dismantled everything supporting the Confederacy. It was the beginning of total war. Sherman believed that to win, he had to break not just the enemy's army, but their will to resist. His march brought chaos and despair to the heart of the South, making it clear that the war would no longer be confined to battlefields. The march to the sea was brutal but decisive. Upon reaching Savannah, Sherman offered the city to Lincoln as a gift. The South was on its knees, and the end of the war could be felt in the air, among the smoke and ashes. In April 1865, the Confederate capital, Richmond, was surrounded. Union troops, led by General Ulysses S. Grant, applied relentless pressure. With scarce supplies and exhausted soldiers, the Confederates couldn't hold. Richmond fell. Collapse was inevitable. A few days later, in the village of Appomattox Courthouse, General Robert E. Lee met with Grant. There was no way out. On April 9, 1865, Lee surrendered. The war was over. There was no loud celebration, no humiliation. Grant offered peace with honor. After 4 years of destruction, the nation was bleeding, but still standing. The battlefield fell silent, and the rebuilding could finally begin. Just days after Lee's surrender, the nation was still processing the war's end when another blow struck. On April 14, 1865, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in a theater by a Confederate sympathizer. The president who had led America through the war would not live to see the peace. Even in death, Lincoln left an immortal legacy. With steady leadership and plain words, he kept the Union alive. His vision of a free and indivisible America would guide the country through the dark years of Reconstruction. The Civil War claimed over 600,000 lives. But from it, a new nation emerged, marked by sacrifice, shaped by freedom, and guided by the idea that, despite our differences, we are one people